All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's Wednesday morning, April 22nd, 2020. I appreciate everybody dialing in for this webinar this morning. We're going to talk about search engine optimization, or SEO, specifically for beginners. This is not an advanced class. We're not going to go through a lot of technical things that are going to confuse people. We're going to focus on some very basic beginner steps that every business owner with a website can take so they can go and try to improve their website to help get found in the search results. I mean, obviously, we're all in difficult times right now. A lot of businesses dried up suddenly, but we know that there is going to be a horizon, and we want to go and start planning for that. So even if you don't have time to be servicing your clients right now, you certainly could be working on your marketing, which is something that should never slow down. And what I'm going to show you today is really specifically about your digital marketing. How can you go and take a couple of actionable steps that you can go and try to make improvements? And then hopefully this will benefit you down the road. So just a couple of housekeeping things. This webinar is being recorded, so you will have access to a recorded version if you want. Questions help, but I'm going to ask that you submit your questions through the GoToWebinar control panel. So there's a question section in there where you can submit your questions. Samantha Calderon from Somerset County Business Partnership, she's also on the line. She's going to try to help organize that for me. So that way, as I get through probably about 30 minutes of talking, then I'll be able to start going through the questions that you've submitted and try to answer as many as I can. And we are just trying to get this to work. There we go. So who am I? My name is Roland Reinhart. I'm a digital marketing consultant. I've spent 3 decades doing advertising and marketing for big brands, small brands, $1 million budgets, mom and pop budgets. But that doesn't matter. I'm not here bragging or anything. I'm just trying to show you why I have some experience to talk about this subject. Not only having worked in the industry for 30 years, 30 plus years actually, I've also been specifically building websites, doing digital marketing for close to 23 years now. I've been a member of the Chamber of Commerce for almost 12 years now. Same time I started as a business owner myself. In that time, I've been very focused on search engine marketing, specifically what we call SEO, search engine optimization, search engine advertising, everything related around that. It all sort of works, dovetails into the website and digital marketing type topics. I'm also a business counselor and instructor with the New Jersey Small Business Development Center for, again, almost a little bit more than a decade. So, I work with hundreds of businesses on a regular basis to try to help give them information so they can make informed decisions. Everything we talk about today, I just want to caveat or disclaimer is, do at your own risk. I'm not going to share with you anything that doesn't work. I'm not going to share anything with you that's going to get you in trouble. But if you implement it the wrong way, or if you choose to go down some dark path that I didn't advise, you're on your own. I just have to say that. That's goes without saying. But some people will always sort of like sit there and try to question things. But let's just be realistic. Also, there are no guarantees in the sense that anything is going to work tomorrow. What would work today, what's been in my bag of tricks for the last dozen years, gets smaller and smaller because Google is a very challenging competitor. And when we think about search engine optimization, we're really talking about how do we give Google what it wants and how do we curry favor with them so that they will actually show links to our content somewhere in the search results. So that's the challenge. We can't do anything to bribe Google. There's nobody you're going to call at Google if you're not happy with how your web links appear in the search results. There's nothing like that. You are subject to their mercy. Google is not your friend, even though they are super helpful and they dominate the search market space in the United States. The reality is all we can do is sort of play along, give them what they want. Hopefully they will go and share favorably with their users. And ultimately, it's in their benefit also, because if they provide good results, then people keep using Google. They're using Google products and services. It makes them money. Sorry, there we go. So what do you need to do today? As I said, this is being recorded, but it is a good idea to take notes. Don't just raise your hand and ask, is there going to be slides available afterwards? Is there a video after? Take some notes. We're all adults, and it's proven that if you write as you think and listen, you actually retain a little bit more. So I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm just sort of saying it is in your benefit. You will also need a website. If you don't have a website, well, the SEO stuff we're going to talk about isn't really helpful yet. If you're planning to build a website, then yes, then this is going to be helpful for you. But if you have no intention of building a website and you don't have a website, then there's really no point in going forward on this. The other thing is it's a willingness to try and learn, because these are concepts that are not difficult. There's no rocket scientists. There are professionals who charge thousands of dollars a month to go and help businesses with this. I'm giving this away for free today for no purpose other than to share, because everybody right now needs to help each other. So this is one way of being able to do that. So please be open-minded, listen, learn, ask some questions. We'll answer them at the end. Have a positive attitude, and definitely try to do some of this when you're done after this call today. So as I've said, we're going to go and try to give you some actionable information, simple, repeatable steps. My goal is to improve your chances of having links appear in the search results. What we were not going to cover is more advanced topics, because there's many different rabbit holes we can go down. So I'm not going to go down a lot of those things. Maybe we'll save that for some future webinar. And some of these things are really things you want to tread carefully on. There's other topics like link building. Again, that can be a whole half-hour conversation onto itself. There's lots of sneaky tricks that are out on the web. I encourage you, do not go searching for them. Do not try them. Even if you think you know what SEO is, and maybe you learned things a dozen years ago, a lot of the stuff that used to work doesn't work and can still get you into trouble. So you want to be careful. Any of these other topics, we can always maybe try to save for some future webinar. In fact, search engine advertising is a topic I'm going to go and present on in a couple of weeks. You should definitely go and check the SCPP, Somerset County Business Partnership, scbp.org/events page for all the upcoming webinars. Like next Tuesday, there's going to be one about content marketing. I'm going to be doing one, I think, a week or two after that on search engine advertising. And there's others that have been popping up you've been seeing from other members. So definitely keep checking that and check the emails that you're getting from the chamber. So search, Google. What happens? How does somebody find your website? If they don't know you exist, they're going to go to Google and they're going to type something in. Usually it's maybe a phrase. Originally we were all trained like type 1 word, 2 word, 3 words. Then it kind of evolved into questions and statements. And somebody's going to type something in, and it may have geographic information in it, like a zip code or a town name or a state, or it may not. These things have become much more sophisticated, but the average user is going to go maybe on their desktop, type in something like tax return preparation, and then we're going to see a list of results. These results have changed many times over the last nearly 20 years that Google has existed, and that's because Google's constantly trying to evolve how they present information, how they sift through the information, decides what's important, what's relevant, what's credible, what seems authentic, what doesn't seem biased, what doesn't seem skewed. And they will search those results. But again, sort of keep in mind, Google is not your friend. Google is going to try to make money. So they will present information on the page in a way that encourages them to get money. But then there's also other content that may appear as well. So if you look at a search result page, on the right-hand side here where you see Google Ads, the first 3 or 4 items that you appear at the top of the search results are usually ads, paid search advertising. Google Ads is the platform. They used to call it Google AdWords. And this is where some business like yourself, you can go and sort of pay to play, if you will. You can go and create a campaign, and an ad, a text ad for your website could appear at the top of the search results based on a certain criteria. If a person searched on some specific keyword phrase, if it was maybe in a specific geographic region, maybe some other criteria, and then you have a chance for a link to appear at the top of the search results. That's fine, but that's not SEO. That's just sort of trying to manipulate your way onto the page, and it's going to cost you money. The next thing you may or may not see on the page is what they call local business listings. This is what used to be called Google Places, and then they renamed it Google My Business. They also once called it Google Plus Local. So it's evolved many times over the years. Well, basically, it's a little map, and it has 2 or 3 businesses listed there. And they are typically local businesses that people can go in person and do physical transactions at. So, a store, a bank, maybe an office building. It's not necessarily meant for somebody who's working out of their home office. You don't list your home office there. It's really Google really tries to emphasize this is about places that people go to make transactions. So that's free, but again, you have to sort of fit into that criteria and apply for it yourself. But that's sort of falls into SEO in a bit, because you can optimize those listings. But again, for most people, it's not relevant if you don't physically do business in one location. The next part of the page further down, the more meat of the page, typically is what we call the organic or natural listings. So these usually maybe about 10 links on the page. They could be a link to a home page. It could be a link to a deeper page. It could be a link to maybe a YouTube video, a Wikipedia entry, an IMDb listing. Any number of links could appear here. The important thing to remember is if your website does appear in these organic links, it's not necessarily a link to your home page. It's going to be a link to a page that Google thinks closely matches what the searcher's intent was. And other factors that contribute to this is geographic location. At the moment that the searcher is going and typing something to Google, Google is detecting where are they right now. Are they in Somerville? Are they in Bridgewater? Are they in Branchburg? And then presumably try to serve up results that are a little bit more closer and hopefully relevant to that person. Because if the same person, or I'm sorry, if a similar person was doing the same search in some other part of the country, and if somebody's in Florida, somebody's in Vermont, somebody's in Colorado, somebody's in New Jersey, you're all typing the exact same thing, tax return preparation, in theory, you should all see very different search results, customized for what Google knows about that user, plus what seems to be relevant based on geography and some other factors. So this blue area on the page, the organic links, this is what we're going to focus on today. How can we improve our odds of appearing here on the page? Now, you notice that, it is further down the page. That's the unfortunate thing, right? Over time, these organic links that we as professional SEOs or search professionals, where we try to go and try to get our websites to appear in, we used to appear higher on the page, ads got introduced, push things down. The local business listings with the maps got introduced, pushes things down. Citation boxes or question answer boxes, other types of knowledge boxes, all push the organic links further down the page. But this is what you have to deal with, contend with, right? Because ultimately Google's going to try to make money. But if they're going to give you something for free, you're going to have to sort of work a little bit harder to at least appear on that page. So what do we know to give Google? In the sense, what does Google want? So Google wants a number of things. I'm just going to go over it high level right here. Oops. Sorry, waiting for the page to load. Let me try just to reload that, refresh it. There we go. So what does Google want? First thing is mobile first. We've been warned for almost 5 years now by Google that, as more people are using a smartphone, a small screen experience, you need to make sure that your website is going to render in a small screen. So those of us who built a website, more than 5 years ago, before mobile responsive design became popular, if you have some static page that just expands and fills the width of the browser, but isn't necessarily user-friendly when viewed on a small, narrow smartphone screen, well, that's a problem, right? Because Google wants a good, positive user experience. And as the world shifts to using smartphones more, we're seeing something like, according to Google, that is 70% of users are starting an information search on a small screen, on a smartphone first. Now, here's a caveat. In the last 4 weeks, things have definitely changed, because as all of a sudden you had a major portion of the workforce has now shifted into, working from home, using desktops, laptops. There has been a change, but we have to presume that this is only a minor blip in the overall scheme of things, and we will sort of revert back at some point down the road. So, but still, mobile first is imperative. Google has also declared that as of September this year, they are going to primarily show mobile responsive websites in their search index. That's what they're doing. They were maintaining 2 search indexes for a while, mobile version and the full desktop version, if you will. And that has been slowly merging over time, but now they just documented that a couple of weeks ago. September is the deadline. We're going to focus on mobile responsive websites. So if you don't have a mobile responsive website, you definitely want to go and check and make sure you got one. If you don't know what that means, Google mobile responsive website, figure it out. I mean, if you have a WordPress website and your theme was mobile responsive, you would probably know that. If you're using some third-party service like Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, those are usually, those themes have been all migrated to become mobile responsive, so there'll be a small screen experience. And if you're not sure, just pick up your phone, visit your website, see if it looks good or not. And if it doesn't look good, then you have to figure out what to do next about it. Speed, making sure your website loads quickly. Again, this is a Google imperative. Google is indexing all these websites. They want the user experience to be good for the people who are viewing them. If the majority of the world is viewing over a smartphone, then obviously that cellular data connection isn't necessarily as fast as like a high-speed broadband connection that might be available in a house or an office building. So it's important. Make sure your website loads fast. There's a couple of factors that go into that. Your web hosting. So, it's not uncommon that you might have been on a hosting plan for 7 or 8 years. The server's never been upgraded. It's slow and creaky. It affects the quality of your website experience. You might want to go and check and see, is your hosting plan the best that it could be? And you don't necessarily have to spend more money. You just have to make sure that, whatever you're on, the technology is decent. Another thing is, the website that you built yourself isn't loading quickly. So, for example, those of us who use WordPress, and WordPress is an excellent content management system. They're saying that almost, I think it's like 38% of websites are now using WordPress as a CMS. And it's a fantastic tool. It's scalable, it's flexible, highly customizable, but it becomes a bit of a bloated programming hog after a while, especially if you sort of install lots of stuff and you don't scrutinize what you're actually putting in to it. So, it can go and slow things down with unintended consequences. So that's one of those things you have to sort of look at. If you're knowledgeable, try to spend some time figuring out how can you improve your website. There are lots of website speed tools out there you can go and explore. Just go to Google website speed tool. You'll find some like GTmetrix or Pingdom. There's a number of them that will provide that. Even Google has one itself. And you can go and try to get some quick sense of like how fast is your website loading and use it as directional information to how to improve it. You're not going to go and get like 100% perfect. You're just trying to go and reduce the barriers that are slowing things down. Because if users are coming to your website and they're waiting for it to load and they're getting frustrated, they're going to hit the back button and go somewhere else. Security is critical. Again, another Google imperative from a few years ago, where they wanted to make sure that everybody's now encrypting their content. So what is that? Installing an SSL certificate on your website, so the URL always shows HTTPS at the beginning of, before the domain name. If that's already happening for you, fantastic, you're there. If it isn't, it's something you want to look into, because it's just another factor that Google's going to evaluate. And you might sit there and question, well, look, who am I? I'm just a little business. I don't have anything important. I'm not, why does it matter if my website's secure? Well, a couple of things. The data that you're transacting between you and your end user. So, somebody is visiting your website and you have a contact form and you ask a bunch of questions on that form and people are typing in their name, their phone number, maybe their address, maybe some other critical information you've asked for, and they're hitting submit and they're sending that in the clear, unencrypted over the internet. Well, that information can be intercepted and you never know what the third party might do with it. So it creates a risk. You're not protecting personally identifiable information for your consumer. So that's something you definitely want to look at. If you're not sure what to do, call your website hosting company, ask them for a solution, or ask your web developer, whoever has helped you in the past, and they can go and point you down the right path. Oops. All right, there we go. Another thing that Google wants, words and quality, quality words, and if you will. So keywords, keyword phrases, that's really what natural search queries have been about for almost 2 decades now. Originally, we started with lists. If you remember 20 plus years ago, Yahoo directory was top of the game, right? Was just a list, an index basically. You are typing in, or you're going to, like with the Yahoo direct, I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback here. I'm saying it says you're going in and out. So I'll just try to speak just a little bit slower to make sure everybody can hear. So if you think back in time, the way directories used to exist, it was just basically lists, and you clicked on something and then it would go to another list and to another list and another list. And that wasn't very efficient, right? So that's where the whole idea of search queries and indexing came from. So, and then it evolved into sort of natural language search queries. So people can go and type in a phrase. It's not just, tax audit accountant. It could be, how to hire a tax audit accountant. Do I need a tax audit accountant? Best tax audit accountant in New Jersey. So people can go and type in different phrases, and that's what Google needs. They need to understand words, because those words that appear on people's websites have to sort of match up to words that appear in the search queries by the people who are looking for a service provider. And then hopefully, through more sophistication over time, that it doesn't have to be so explicit. It becomes a little bit more relaxed. So Google becomes very sophisticated and understanding that, maybe we know that a lawyer and an attorney are very similar in definition, what they do. A CPA, a certified public accountant, those are similar terms, right? They sort of represent each other. But, a regular financial planner and a certified financial planner, maybe there is a little bit more of a distinction between the two. A realtor versus a real estate agent versus a real estate broker. Again, there's subtle differences between those things. So Google has learned over many, many years and many searches what those differences are and how they relate to different types of web pages, and hopefully to show the right type of content at the right time. Now, just because a keyword phrase exists on somebody's website doesn't necessarily mean that it's automatically going to show up in the search results. Google is going to scrutinize that page. Is the page seem to have high quality content? And everybody will raise raise an alarm and say, like, well, what's the definition of high quality content? Ultimately, you have to think of it as, is this a sufficient number of words on the page to make it seem like you've written something of substance? Does it seem like you've written with subject matter expertise and authority? Are you just sort of like copying and pasting from some other place, trying to pass it off as your own? Are you writing with a bias, or are you actually sort of providing both sides of both sides, so to allow the user to make a decision, to evaluate pros and cons successfully? So there's many different things that go into the definition of quality content. And if you go and Google, what does high quality content for Google mean, you'll find probably a number of different blog posts that talk about that. But ultimately, we try to go and maybe write 500 to 1,000 words on a page if you can. That's not saying that's a definite. It's just saying the more words on the page, the more you can write, the more you can go and introduce different concepts and ideas that are all related around a focus. And it seems like you're writing with authority and expertise, and it seems like it fits into a definition of quality. Then you're going to be better off than your competitor who just writes a simple 1 or 2 sentences on a page and thinks that they can get away with that, because that's not going to work. Geographic information is important, because especially for local businesses, if you're not dealing regionally or nationally, but you're focused very locally, say a landscaping company, even some of the health and wellness practitioners, you're trying to go and focus on people who are close that you're going to meet with maybe once or twice or on a regular basis. So having geographic information appear on every page of your website will be a benefit to you. So you can go and differentiate yourself and have a better time trying to compete locally as compared to if you're trying to compete nationally. So here's a quick question for you. And it's going to be a rhetorical question, because I realize we're not using the polling function here today. But if you think about website structure, 20 years ago, it used to say, a website used to be maybe 4 pages. So if you look at example A on the left side, home, maybe some services page, and the services page had like an index of like 20 different bullet points, maybe an about us page and a contact us page. That 4 pages was all people thought that they needed, because they were treating the web like it was just a brochure. And it's like, let me just take whatever my 3-column printed brochure is, put it up on the website, and I'm great. And it maybe worked 20 years ago. And I remember working in ad agencies where we would charge like $30,000-$40,000 for something like that. And I know that sounds crazy now, but that was the time, right? Because it was certain professional expertise to be able to do this. The information wasn't out there and as common. Nowadays, that 4-page website does not work. So if your mindset is, I'm just going to slap something together, get it online, you think you're going to get business, it really doesn't work. I'm sorry to say that. What you need is a structure like the right side, labeled B here. So you need a website where you're breaking out as many different pages as possible, and each page try to make it very specific and focused. So it's not just home, services about us, contact us. Now it's like services, and then breaking out different services underneath. So in this case, I took a physical therapy example. Physical therapy does many different types of physical therapy, and there's many more types than what I just listed here. But just to give you an example, there's people who are looking for sports training, sports injury, shoulder injury, neck injury, herniated disc. You might have somebody who had hip or knee replacement, and they have to go through physical therapy for a few months to go and recover movement and get used to it. There's many different things that people do. Now you have to think about this, like if somebody is looking online, I need a physical therapist, they want to look at a physical therapist services page where there's 20 bullet points and the 17th one is specific to the problem they have? Or would they rather arrive on a page specifically that's all about the problem they have? It would make that person feel a lot more confident. If I know that, I have, I don't know, let's just say it's a herniated disc, and there is a page on this website that's all about, physical therapy for a herniated disc. And it's talking about what are the common issues that other patients with that have. How do we go about treatment process? How do we, it's not just cookie cutter, but we're actually trying to customize and develop a plan specific for you. So when somebody can see that you are offering them a service that's specific to their pain or problem, they are more likely to spend a little bit more time on the website doing the next steps, which might be reading peer reviews, right, or testimonials to see how have you been successful at doing this for other people who have a similar problem. Looking at your About Us page, to see your bio, your background, your history, licensing things, what insurance you accept, what are the things you need to know for the first time visits so it doesn't take 20 minutes of filling out forms, etc. I mean, there's lots that you can do here, but ultimately the idea is to make sure that you're providing as much information and as much specific information to allow a person to self-service, get some confidence that they like what they see, and that they're going to go and feel confident with the next step, which is a call to action. Are they going to click to call you, or are they going to fill out a contact form, or are they going to use an appointment form, or are they going to do something else that you might have on your website, sign up for a free webinar, whatever that is. So this B, the website structure on the right side, is going to be much more effective if you want to try to get as many of these web pages as possible to appear in the search results. If you go the A approach, very few, if any, are going to appear in the search results just because there are billions and billions of web pages, and you probably have hundreds of thousands of competitors on already. So it's going to be very difficult to go and nudge your way as a new website among that. So another example of website structure here, I just sort of blew out another one just to give you a little bit of a differentiation. If you had an accountant might have multiple lines of services that they offer. You have to think about, well, okay, there's services for individuals and there's services for businesses, right? So the tax return preparation for individuals may be different than tax return preparation for businesses, right? Because there's just a lot more complexity to the latter. Bookkeeping is obviously something that's specific to businesses. It's not something that you're going to do for individuals primarily, right? So, again, if you think back to that thought I said earlier about a person comes to a services page and sees 20 bullet points, and the one thing that they're looking for is low on the page, just this little bullet point among many other things, they might get discouraged and they might not proceed. At least if they were searching for tax audit representation in Google and they found a link to this accountant's or accounting firm's tax audit representation page, they bypassed the homepage, they went right to that tax audit representation page. They're immediately getting fulfilled with information that makes sense to them, and then they can proceed to look at testimonials about us, contact us. And the other thing you have to remember as a website owner is no matter how much you want to believe it, people are not going to read every single page of your website. They don't have the time, and quite frankly, they don't care. They just want to know, can you solve my pain? Can you solve my problem? Have you done it for others? Do you have the qualifications and the background? Great. Let's proceed, or at least proceed with the next step. So that's the thing you have to remember. People are going to look at maybe only 3 pages of your website, possibly 4 if you're lucky, or they might look at none because they hit the back button. They're only going to spend maybe less than 2 to 3 minutes on the website. And I can say these things confidently because, again, I've said I've worked with hundreds of businesses over the years. I've had access to hundreds of Google Analytics accounts for all these websites, and the same constant pattern I see over and over again for like business to business, business to consumer type websites. I'm not going to say e-commerce because that's a whole different animal, but for your standard business website, people are only looking, visitors that is, are only looking at, 2, 3, maybe 4 pages, and they're spending less than 3 minutes before they're making some decision. And that's the reality. So we want to just make sure that you got somebody on the page, or you did your work to try to get somebody on the page, and you want to try to keep them on the page as long as possible, keep them on the site, and get them to do the next step. So what do we have to do in order to try to prepare to get somebody to find our website? Website structure, as I just described, trying to go and organize your content in a way that makes sense with the different services you're offering, whether you're an accountant or whether you're some kind of health and wellness professional or an interior designer, it doesn't matter. But you're going to have to brainstorm a little bit. Okay, what are the keyword phrases people are searching for? And you want to be careful. They're searching for phrases that are specific to solving a problem. They're not necessarily for DIY type solutions or for salaries and jobs. You want to think about the phrases that somebody is looking for to hire a professional to help them. So, it could be simple: business accountant, small business accountant, certified public accountant. People are going to have different ideas of what those words are, and they're going to use them in different methods, and they may tack on geographic information. They may ask it in the form of a question, but you have to come up with some basic thoughts. What is it that people are searching for? How are they searching for it? Go to Google, type these phrases, and see what comes up to sort of validate your assumptions. And then, capture this information in some method. Usually I'll put it on a spreadsheet or so. So we're taking all this. Actually, I'm going to jump ahead one slide real quick. When I just said capturing all this into some type of spreadsheet, this helps, for at least from my perspective, just to sort of organize thoughts. So we said there were going to be a number of different websites. In this case, for a music teacher, and I always love this conversation when a music teacher will ask me well, why do I need anything more than a 4-page website? Well, when you start looking at this, look at every row in column A there, what are the different things you could do? And, and this is based on a real life example here. So, a woman who gives in-home piano lessons, she goes to the to the student's home and performs the lessons there. So it's in home. It's different than, it's not virtual. It's not coming to a music studio or something like that. So, you have to think about, okay, now break that out among who are the types of customers or students that you accept. And if you spend a lot of time working with younger age, because, adult parents are trying to go and make sure that children are stimulated early on, then there's going to be different age ranges because, the parent is trying to get them started really super early versus maybe later in life. There's different phrases they're going to type in. There's going to be different assumptions or expectations. So you can easily create a number of different pages for different topics that you are going to sell. And it's not necessarily that one is going to be, or that they're all going to be amazing. They're all going to be drawing a ton of traffic. The reality is, you may be getting a lot more that are youth-oriented versus adult-oriented. Because, as you grow older, you're going to go and seek out new sources to go and continue your music journey after, at some point it plays out. So if you think about structuring your information, like creating a little spreadsheet like I do, you don't have to. This is just the way I've done it for a dozen years. Every row is a page of the website. And then I start sort of defining in other columns what that means. And then maybe I create little tabs within that spreadsheet to sort of break it out into a little more high level categories. If it's for beginners, for for adults, for kids, whatever. In each of those, and I begin to sort of brainstorming and putting in the words that I'm thinking people are going to be typing in. But in order to make sure I'm choosing the right keyword phrases, I need something to sort of help justify it in my mind, that I'm not going down the wrong path, I'm not choosing the wrong phrase. So that's where we get into this idea of keyword research tools, right? I can easily go and type in piano teacher into Google and see what comes up. and be like, great, oh, that looks like it. I'm definitely a piano teacher, but maybe there's also other things, piano instructor. Maybe there's some other phrases as well. And which one is searched on more frequently, piano and teacher, piano instructor? If I was an attorney, if I was a DWI attorney versus a DWI lawyer, which one is searched on more? I might make an assumption that, if I am an attorney and I spent a lot of years and a lot of money becoming an attorney, getting the prestige of being called an attorney, I want the word attorney to be used in whatever content on my website. But if the reality is that maybe like data tells you something completely different, that it's not necessarily the strongest word, there are other words you could use, then you really need to consider using that, because you could be losing out on opportunity. So for example, this is a tool called Google Trends. Many people don't use this, and it's actually pretty cool. So it's trends.google.com, and you can go there and you can just type in some keyword phrases to figure out similar keyword phrases. So in this case, I did DWI. So DWI means driving while intoxicated versus DUI, which is driving under influence. So DWI attorney versus DWI lawyer versus DUI attorney versus DUI lawyer. And if you look at the results over all these years, and this is like five years or so, it's giving you a sense of which phrases are searched on more than others. If the attorney was like very insistent, DWI attorney, that's what I am, this is what I do, then you notice that actually that's the lowest search volume in the past 5 years historically. And if I even want to go further and try to say, look, okay, let me go and like narrow that down to like New Jersey, definitely it's the lowest. If anything, DUI lawyer is what 38% of searches in this case, or what Google is documenting and making available to us. They say that most people are searching for DUI lawyer, followed by DUI attorney, followed by DWI lawyer versus DWI attorney. So what does that mean? If I knew that, okay, there's a phrase that's searched on more frequently than others, I should create a web page and optimize it around that keyword phrase that's searched on more than anything else, the DWI lawyer. But I could still create other pages on my website to take advantage of those other phrases. I don't make one page and then blur a whole bunch of different topics together, or different variations of this search phrase on it, because that would just be way too confusing. People would get frustrated. And I'm sorry, because when they're reading it, they're visually seeing all these different phrases. They're not sure, well, what the hell is this guy? And you're confusing Google too, because Google's search results are going to show something slightly different for each one of these things. So we go and create a page that's optimized around the phrase DUI lawyer and focus on that as being the primary page. You don't have to use just Google Trends. There's lots of other tools out there. There's one by an SEO professional called Neil Patel. If you went to neilpatel.com, he has a tool called Uber Suggest. And you could just drop a phrase in there, see what happens. They're going to show you like search volume, 12,100. So that's search volume on a monthly basis. I don't know exactly where he's getting all his data. There's a lot of search tools out there. Some of them get data that they can get data directly from Google. Some of them are creating it from other sources, from browser toolbars, extensions, from scraping search results and trying to pull that data in. So there's many different places out there. There's nothing definitive here. I mean, ideally, I try to go to Google and use their tools wherever possible. But I'm just saying there are tools out there to at least give you some approximation, to get an idea. If I typed in this phrase versus something else, well, what is that? And is it makes sense to me? If I look here, they're giving you some other suggestions. And, this is a tool that you can play around with. Professionals will probably go straight to Google. If you're running a Google Ads campaign, then you have access to much richer data than if you've never created a Google Ads account before, then you wouldn't really have any good results. But, in Google Ads as a keyword planner, we can use for free. Bing, which is Microsoft's search engine, in their Bing Ads platform, they have a keyword research tool where we can use and try to plop phrases in and see what comes out. There's a lot of other ones, Moz, etc. So the whole point to this is there are tools you can use to do some research. You can type a phrase into Google, see what happens. You could type a phrase into some of these keyword research tools, try to see what kind of search volume, and it'll give you some directional information. So if you're trying to make that decision, like I was showing in the example with the attorney versus lawyer and DWI versus DUI, you can go and put some phrases in there, get some results to come out and say, okay, well, now I understand. The phrase that's most important should be this one. I should go and try to make sure I build a really stellar page all around that. And then I can certainly go and create other pages around other things. So, organizing all that information, that's where I was trying to show you here in a spreadsheet. I like to go and do this way because I come back and, I just try to dump information in somewhere, put in that average number of volume searches in there to try to have some reference point, and then make a decision. Okay, if I'm going to optimize a page around, music lessons for autistic children, is that a phrase that exists? And is there a different way of phrasing that exists? And I pick the one that makes more sense, and that's the one that I'm going to use. Now, you're wondering, okay, well, what does that mean? And I will explain. What do we do with all this info, right? So we're collecting a bunch of data, and then hopefully you'll be able to use it somehow. Well, ultimately, you have a web page. Every page of your website is a web page. Some might call it a landing page. Don't worry about semantics. Your home page is going to look a certain way. Individual service pages on your website are going to look certain ways. Your template that you're using, whether it's WordPress or whatever you're using, Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, they're going to present information in whatever way you've set it up. I'm not here telling you what's right or wrong. I'm just giving you an example. You can decide how you make your website look. You can decide what colors you want. You can decide if you want some kind of contact form embedded on every page or not. For a long time, I was putting contact forms on the sidebar. Now I'm sort of like moving things further down the page. But the whole point is, you're going to take a page, and if you follow that process of creating different unique pages for different unique topics, each one's going to have a highly specific focus. So here I'm going to use a different example than I've used in the past. I'm going to use one, say you're a divorce coach, right? And what are we trying to do? We're trying to optimize this page around the phrase divorce coach. We have some geographic information. This is based in Somerset. So let's go and try to make sure that we're using this keyword phrase, divorce coach, many different times on the page, both what's visible as well as what's hidden. And that's the trick there. That's what we call on-page optimization. You can always go and search Google for on space page space optimization tips or on-page optimization SEO, and try to find different blog posts and videos that show you different things. But I'm just showing you the basics. If we're going to approach trying to create different pages, in this case, a divorce mediator website where one page is about divorce mediation, another page is about a divorce mediator, a third page is about a divorce coach, a fourth page is about financial planning for divorce, and so on, then we're going to go and try to optimize those pages around different primary keyword phrases, and then make these things well written, authoritative, seem like a subject matter expertise, making sure that they have, they're written without bias, and hopefully try to stir somebody to go and want to contact. So what do we do with that phrase, divorce coach? We can incorporate it. If you see up here in the browser title, we're trying to influence what appears up here. So we're certified divorce coach, Somerset, New Jersey. So, divorce coach, Somerset, New Jersey, that's a keyword phrase, and that's geographic information. The domain name and the URL, that's part of that domain name. So the domain name doesn't have to have your keyword phrase in it. It could be whatever you want, but somewhere as part of that path, and I'm sorry it's a little cut off here, but, it would say like, services/divorce-coach. Your navigation, you probably have something, divorce coach is your navigation, or one of your main menu navigation options. The page name itself, the label that's appearing on that page, divorce coach. We try to go and work that into maybe the first sentence or first paragraph on the page. We work it in as many times as we can throughout the body of the page in a way that makes sense, that doesn't look silly, repetitive. We could go and try to work it into subheads, bullet lists, things like that. Call to actions, schedule a free 30-minute consultation with a certified divorce coach. Again, the call to action on the side with a phone number and repeating that. This image, we use what they call alternate text. So behind the image, if this image wasn't displayed, there would be some words that appear in its place. I would say, Jane Doe is a certified divorce coach working out of Somerset, New Jersey, something like that. But again, sort of getting words in there. So when Google or Bing, they send their little bots, spiders, crawlers, whatever you want to call it, they come and look at every page on a website. They try to figure out, this page is about divorce coach, this other page is about divorce mediation, another one's about divorce mediator, another one's about financial planning for divorce, et cetera, et cetera. Now they sort of purely see that every page has a very hyper-specific focus. On those pages, we're using a very specific keyword phrase. as a lot of different times throughout that page. We're not mixing the message up. We're actually being very specific. And it makes sense. And they appreciate that, the bots, that is, because they squirrel that information away to mothership Google. And then Google, in some days, weeks, months, they will decide, okay, we're going to start showing these links in the search results, and they may show them higher than others because the competitors may not have gone through as much effort. So the key thing to remember here is, this is a very basic example. Again, you can make your website look any way you want. I'm showing you a very basic example from an SEO perspective, specifically mindful for beginners, that if you just take a keyword phrase, try to integrate that throughout the page as many times as possible, that's going to help you. Try to write geographic information onto the page as well if you can. For a long time we used to do footers where it would be like, the declaration of who you are, what you do, where you do it, who you do it for. So, Jane and Joe Doe are, a certified divorce coach and certified divorce mediator based out of Somerset County. They work with they work with it's not patients, I forget. They work with people throughout, Bridgewater, Somerset, Hunterdon, et cetera, et cetera. You can go and try to work some language in there so it sort of like has specifically who you are, what you do, and where you do it, and especially that where you do it piece, the geographic information, so it appears on every page. Or you can go and try to work that into very specific pages that are dedicated to that. The thing you want to be careful of is don't sit there and try to go and like create a footer where you list 30, 40, 50 different zip codes or town names, because that was like a very old tactic from more than a decade ago that still appears on a lot of home improvement websites. It works to some extent, but it's really frowned upon, and Google and Bing don't like it. So you want to be careful. Don't try to manipulate things. Just try to make things logical. So with that said, one other thing I teased on the previous page was something called a meta description. If you're reading carefully, I said that, on the previous page, we were looking at things that are visible as well as things that might be hidden. The meta description is something that has value because you can go and try to customize the message that appears in the search results. If you don't fill out a meta description when you're editing your web page, you're leaving it to Google or Bing to decide what text from that page to show on the search result. So if you can, you should try to control that. So if you remember up here on this previous slide, I said there's hidden media description field that's in your page source code. So it doesn't necessarily appear here. And if I didn't fill that out in WordPress or whatever tool I'm using, content management system, then Google would just probably grab some random bit of text here that might have the word divorce coach, but it may or may not make sense. If I go and fill something out specifically saying, okay, I'm going to go and like make a meta description that has the important ideas that I want to take away, because you have to remember, just because a link appears in the search results, we're still depending on a human to decide to click on it. That human's going to look at the title, they're going to look at the description, they may look at what they see in the path here, and then they may decide to click on it versus everybody else. So you want to try to influence this as much as possible. It's a tiny bit of a little bit of an advanced tactic, but if you have the option, depending on what you're using, like in WordPress, we usually have to install an additional plugin specifically for SEO to go and help, like this Yoast SEO plugin, or there's All-in-One SEO. Those are two pretty popular ones that are very robust. You can go in there and make edits to go and try to help influence how this appears. If you're using some other CMS, there are many different search. If you just do a quick little Google search, like how to edit SEO fields in Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, whatever, you'll find the respective help section for each of those platforms, and they will have something simple where you can just go and adjust what the title is, maybe adjust what the meta description is, and that way you can try to go and influence those search results. So in recap, because I realize we're getting close to the hour now, what did I learn today? The structure of your website is going to impact whether you're going to get found in the search results, because if it's just few pages, then there's very little to give Google to make a decision to show you. If you create many different pages and many have hyper focus and you optimize each one, then you improve your odds of success. If you can sort of brainstorm and identify keyword phrases that your ideal customer is going to use, that's going to benefit you, right? Because then you're going to make each page very specific. And if you can sort of validate those assumptions by using keyword research tools like some of the ones I showed that Neil Patel Uber suggests is an easy free one you can use. If you already ran a Google Ads campaign, you have access to a keyword planner built in there that actually has a lot more robust data. But you can just go and Google free keyword research tool. You'll find many different suggestions out there to go and help you. Or you can even try that Google Trends one we were showing you, google.com/trends. These on-page optimization tactics I showed you, where you're just trying to take one primary keyword phrase, repeat it many times on the page, I mean, that will help. Now, I'll let you in on a little secret and be honest. As an SEO professional, I actually do a lot more. That's just the very, very basic. But the whole point is you right now need to go and take some basic steps. Don't try to go and put the cart before the horse and run a marathon before you've actually been able to run a mile, right? So you want to go and try to make sure that you know you're doing the basics, getting everything solid, and then you can always come and try to advance yourself down the road. Geographic information is critical on every page of your website if you can. And the point here is, again, trying to sort of compete more in a local area, because on a national level, it's going to be very difficult because you have a lot more competitors than you do on Google, than you do on the local. If you're not sure about something, you can easily search Google for an answer. It's amazing how much information is out there. Just go and look for it. Type a question. Google's pretty good at surfacing answers. And if you're not sure what to do, hire a professional or seek more help. We belong to Somerset County Business Partnership. There's a whole section in the member list about different resources that are available to go and help you with this. You just should probably go and interview several to get comparison, figure out which one you're most comfortable with, and come up with a plan and a budget that makes sense for you. There's lots of other resources too. You can just ask a colleague, what did you do to make your website work so well? You can go and look for online marketplaces like Fiverr and Guru and Upwork, plenty of other places out there. So with that said, I think what we'll do is we'll turn it over to any questions. So if you had any questions, please use the question pane and submit that. I see we have, I think, one or two. So just a second, I'm going to pull those up and I'll try to answer those real quick. There we go. All right, so I'm back. So let me see what we got. Joe. Joe asked a question. I'm sorry, John Dugan. How can we edit metadata if we're using Squarespace or Weebly? Well, you're going to ask the customer service at Squarespace or Weebly. You're paying them money, $10 a month or whatever it is. Go and call up customer service, ask them how to do it, have them walk you through it for a couple of minutes. Otherwise, you can go to the support section. It's usually like support.squarespace.com or support.wix or .weebly.com. Whatever it is, go and look through there, look in their SEO, or just type into Google, how do I edit meta description in Squarespace or Wix or Weebly? I mean, those answers are there. You're going to have to sort of find them. To be honest, I really don't do anything other than WordPress because I've got 13 years experience doing that. So I'm a little bit biased in the sense that I know how to bend it to my will. So I will focus on that. Every time I see Squarespace, Wix, and Weebly, I mean, I think they're good, simple content management systems to allow people to do it yourself to get it up and running. But I also work with a lot of people who've aged out of that, who felt there's only so much you can do with them to a point where you need to sort of, grow to a different platform or because you want to do more advanced functionality. So, I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for you. You're going to have to sort of talk to them. Walter Slade. Hi, Walter. Which website development tool do you recommend? So I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. When you say website development, are you talking about a content management system, like what we were saying, like WordPress, Wix, Squarespace, Weebly? A lot of it's going to depend on what type of website you're building. If you are a business consultant, like I believe you are, then probably something like WordPress, Wix, Squarespace, Weebly, those will be fine. If you're trying to launch an e-commerce store and you're going to have hundreds of products, then you want to look at something like Shopify or BigCommerce. Those are excellent platforms, very robust, end-to-end, all built around and have the tools that are built in to go and help you with an e-commerce experience. But it also, you have to temper in your how much pain you're willing to absorb. And by that I mean, it's like, if you're not going to hire somebody because you just don't have the budget, and that's fair, right? A lot of people just don't have the budget to hire a professional, so you're going to have to sort of spend your hours cobbling things together. Squarespace, I think, is an excellent platform for very simple websites to go and sort of, you go in there, you create a free trial, you go and you pick a template, you go and pick something that you like. Then the problem with all those tools, whether it's Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, whatever, they kind of leave you hanging with like, well, what is it you really have to do to build your website? How to create structure, like what I was showing in those earlier slides. So not just you home services, about us, contact us, but actually thinking a little bit bigger picture, how to label things correctly, how to write strategically, how your text is a bit salesy, a bit marketing, a little bit psychology, a little bit of fear of missing out, bit authoritative. You're trying to mix a lot of different things in, write persuasively, and they don't teach you how to do that. That ultimately is something you have to learn yourself, or maybe it comes naturally, or you hire a professional to do. So, the best thing for you is if you just need a simple website, go out to a couple of those platforms, create a free trial on each, play with it, see if you have a comfort level, and then, you can decide which one to give your credit card to. So, but that's an excellent question. Thank you. Let's see. So there's a question from Antoinette. Antoinette says, let's see, can you give a quick overview about how you know if your website is secure? Well, oftentimes, just by looking at the URL at the top in your browser will tell you something. So here in this example on the screen, you see there's a little padlock there. And if you click on that padlock, it says connection secure. And you can see right here, it begins with HTTPS instead of HTTP. So the S makes it secure. Well, no, it's a lot more complicated than that, but I'm just trying to say, like, typically what's happened is the web hosting has an SSL certificate, Secure Socket Layer SSL, and this SSL certificate is something that's unique, it's encrypted, and it's supposed to be basically, ensuring that the content on the page is all secure. If there's a mixture of secure and insecure content on the page, there might be other warnings that appear, like, not all content is secure or whatever. So, this is something you have to sort of look at your own website. If you got this S in front of it, then it's secure. If it's not there, call customer service for your website host, or call your web developer and ask them, what should I do? Is this a priority? Now, the SSL certificate used to be a very, very expensive thing. It used to be at least like $100 a year from many service providers, GoDaddy and whatnot would charge. And fairly so. It's, they make money off of that. But over the last 4 years, there's been a lot more offerings that are inexpensive or no expense. So, for example, there's something called Let's Encrypt, LETS Encrypt. You don't necessarily have to go to their website, but hosting companies are including this Let's Encrypt SSL certificate for free as part of their basic hosting packages. So it's one of those things you can look at. If the current web hosting you're paying for isn't providing you with any kind of SSL certificate, or they want to go and charge you for $100 a year for an SSL certificate, you can go and ask them, okay, well, do you have a package that has a Let's Encrypt certificate for free? And if not, maybe look at a different hosting company and see if they offer that. And I think definitely at this point, Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, Shopify, BigCommerce, these things all will provide SSL certificates as part of their packages, unless there's some reason there needs to be a much more higher advanced version of the basic one. So you'll have to look at that. So thank you for the question, everybody. Let's see. Question from Ted. Very informative. How does a hosted site redirect impact Google search ranking? How does a hosted site redirect impact? Ted, if I think I understand what you're saying, I'm not going to go and answer that here because we're going to screw up everybody. At the beginning, I said I'm not going to go and talk about very advanced topics. I wanted to just keep everybody's focus specifically on how to go and try to structure their website and how to go and make simple tactics. If we start going down the rabbit hole of search ranking and what that means, and if it really is a valid method of measurement, then we'll be here all day. So sorry, I'm not going to answer that. Anybody else? Otherwise, we're going to be wrapping up. It's about 10:01. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any last question, throw it in the next 5 seconds. So I think, again, the resources are out there. One of the things I just wanted to raise that I didn't mention already was the Small Business Development Center, the SBDC. There are offices throughout the state, but the one that covers Somerset County and Hunterdon County is based out of Raritan Valley Community College. You can request no-cost business counseling there. I am a digital marketing consultant who works there, and I meet with business owners, several times a month. It doesn't cost you anything. You just have to request the help. So if you wanted to go to sbdcrvcc.com, you can make a request for business counseling, talk to me, or there's actually a dozen other counselors on other topics, retail marketing, bookkeeping, financial planning, putting together, a loan package. I mean, obviously these days things are a little bit different, but, under normal circumstances, we're there with a lot of different information, a lot of different experts on different things. We don't sell you anything. We're there just to answer your questions, and then you can go and decide what you want to do for it. The library system has excellent resources. I know it's a little bit difficult right now. You can't necessarily check books out of the library, but there are a ton of great books I've taken out of the Somerset County library system. If you don't want to buy it on Amazon, you can go there. There are books on SEO, search advertising, all sorts of great stuff. There might even be some digital versions. You have to take a look and see if they've made anything new available. Of course, like I said earlier, check the membership directory for the Somerset County Business Partnership. There are lots of great resources out there, and definitely check that events page, because as I mentioned at the top of the hour or the beginning, that we do have some events coming up like next Tuesday morning. Definitely want to sign up for that content marketing one with Adam Torres. He's a good guy and he knows a lot. And I see Adam's on the line here, so hey, thanks for joining up. So I guess that's it. If there are no other questions, I think we'll be signing off. Samantha, do you have anything? All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. Stay safe. Try to help somebody.